I wasn't expecting to get a message from a stranger at 3:12 a.m. But that's what happened. It was a photo, blurry, taken under the dim light of a street lamp. The focus was off, but I recognized them instantly. Those were her shoes. The red strappy heels she only wore on special nights. The ones she once said made her feel like she had main character energy. And there they were, abandoned, left right outside the entrance of some hotel I didn't recognize. No context, no text, just the image. Sent from a number I didn't have saved. I stared at it for a full minute, my fingers frozen over the screen. Then finally, a follow-up message came in. Sorry, bro. She left them in the back of my car. Thought you should know. My throat dried up. I asked, where did you drop her off? No reply. I called the number, straight to voicemail. Now let me be clear. She was supposed to be home hours ago. She told me they were just doing a quick birthday dinner for one of her new coworkers. Not even drinks, she said. Just sushi and laughs. Be back by 10. I remember the way she said that last part. Like she was offended, I even considered asking when she'd be home. As if the idea of me needing reassurance was pathetic. I should have known better. When midnight rolled around and there was still no sign of her, I texted. Then called. Then texted again. Nothing. I paced the living room for hours, rehearsing excuses on her behalf. Maybe someone had a flat tire. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she went out after dinner and forgot to check in. Maybe she didn't want to wake me up. But the shoes? The shoes changed everything. I opened our shared location app, which we both pretended not to check. Nothing showed. It had been turned off. At 3:24 a.m., I sent her a message. I got a photo from a driver. Your shoes are outside a hotel. Are you okay? No response. At 4:09 a.m., she finally replied. Long story. I'm fine. Please don't make this into a thing. I'll explain tomorrow. No punctuation. No apology. No, I love you. Just that. And you know the craziest part? She didn't come home. By the time the sun came up, I was still wide awake, sitting in the same spot on the couch where I had been all night, staring at my phone like it was going to solve everything for me. Her last message kept replaying in my head. I'll explain tomorrow. But tomorrow was here, and she was not. I didn't want to be that husband. The paranoid one. The one who accuses and assumes. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. The hotel in the photo had a name. You could barely make it out under the light above the entrance. Eastbridge Suites. I looked it up. 3 stars. Mid-range. The kind of place you book when you want privacy without questions. Close enough to the downtown bars, but just far enough away to be discreet. My heart thudded in my chest as I dialed the front desk. Eastbridge Suites, this is Marcy. How can I help you today? I tried to sound calm, but my voice cracked halfway through the lie I had rehearsed. Hi. I think my wife might be staying there. Her name is Lena Harper. I haven't been able to reach her, and I'm just worried. I think she left her phone in an Uber. There was a pause on the other end. I imagined her pulling up a list of guests. Then she said the words I'll never forget. Sir, I'm sorry, but we can't confirm or deny whether someone is staying here due to privacy policies. Of course, I knew they'd say that. But the way she said it, there was a hesitation. Just a flicker of something in her voice. Almost like she wanted to say more. Like she knew exactly who I was asking about. So I changed tactics. I understand, I said. But did anyone check in last night around 2 a.m.? Possibly with no luggage? Wearing red heels? Another pause. A breath. Then, I'm sorry, sir. I really can't give out that information. But she didn't hang up. That silence told me more than words ever could. I ended the call and sat there in stunned disbelief. My mind raced with images I didn't want to see. I kept asking myself, what could she possibly be doing at a hotel that late? Why would she lie? Why wouldn't she come home? And the worst part? The silence wasn't just from her. It was spreading, like a fog, through every part of my life. No texts, no calls, no explanations. At 9:37 a.m., she finally walked in through the front door. Hair down. Same black dress from the night before. A crumpled grocery bag in her hand with what looked like a breakfast sandwich and a bottle of juice. She looked tired. Not guilty. Not panicked. Just emotionally blank. Like someone who had been driving for hours through the desert with no music. I didn't say anything at first. I wanted to. God, I needed to. But all I could do was stare at her as she kicked off her shoes, the replacement pair, not the red ones, and mumbled something about traffic. She didn't even ask if I was okay. didn't ask if I slept, just walked past me and disappeared into the bathroom. I stood there in the hallway, staring at the closed door, listening to the water run, and all I could think about was the photo from the Uber driver and the fact that she never once asked how I even knew where she had been. She didn't ask because she already knew she'd been caught. She went to sleep without saying a word, just climbed into bed around 10:30 a.m. like nothing had happened, like she hadn't vanished into thin air for an entire night. I sat in the living room, completely still, listening to the dull hum of the bathroom fan she forgot to turn off. My heart hadn't stopped pounding since the moment she walked in. And as I sat there, staring at the closed door to our bedroom, a strange calm washed over me. Not the peaceful kind, but the numb kind. The kind you get just before something inside you breaks. Around noon, while she was still asleep, I decided to clean. Not because the house was dirty, but because I needed to do something. Anything. My hands were shaking, my brain was screaming, and I couldn't sit still anymore. So I started with the kitchen, wiped down the counters, reorganized the spice rack, threw out old fruit from the bowl. Then I moved to the bedroom. She was dead asleep, curled up under the blanket, breathing softly like she had nothing to worry about. That's when I noticed the laundry hamper, overflowing, untouched since before Omar's birthday. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I lifted the lid and began pulling out clothes. Slowly, shirt by shirt. At first, it was just the usual stuff, leggings, socks, some of my work polos. But then, at the very bottom, stuffed beneath a crumpled hoodie, I found something that didn't belong there. A men's t-shirt. Not mine. Gray. Faded. Too big for her. Too long in the sleeves. Smelled faintly of cologne. Something spicy, citrusy, expensive. Not anything I'd ever wear. Not anything she'd wear either. I held it in my hands for a long time, staring at it like it might explain itself. It didn't. No tags. No logos. Just that faint, foreign scent and a wrinkle pattern that said it had been slept in recently. I brought it to my nose. Inhaled slowly. The scent was sharp, unfamiliar, and intimate. I knew that this shirt had been worn by someone else. Someone she had been close enough to bring his clothes into our house. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just stood there, heart racing, trying to convince myself that maybe, it was borrowed from someone else at the office. Maybe she spilled something and had to change. Maybe it meant nothing. But there was something else. Tucked into the side pocket of the jeans she wore the night before, stuffed so deep I almost missed it, was a cocktail napkin. Folded once. No logo. Just a single line written in bold blue ink. You made me forget the rules. That was it. I stared at those 6 words like they were a curse. My hands started to shake again. My mouth went dry. I don't even remember how long I stood there in the middle of the room holding that napkin and that stranger's shirt. All I know is the weight of both things hit me like a brick to the chest. Because this wasn't innocent. This wasn't just drinks. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was something else. Something real. And something she was keeping from me. When she finally woke up an hour later, I had already put the napkin and the shirt back exactly where I found them. Not because I was trying to protect her, but because I needed time. Time to think. Time to figure out who I was actually married to. She walked into the kitchen rubbing her eyes, yawning like she had just come back from a long road trip instead of a night at a hotel. You okay? She asked, like I was the one acting strange. And all I could say was, yeah, just tired. But deep down I knew. I wasn't just tired. I was beginning to unravel. I couldn't stop thinking about the napkin. You made me forget the rules. That single sentence haunted me for the rest of the day. Every time I blinked, I saw it. Blue ink, rushed handwriting, no signature. I kept asking myself, what rules? And who made her forget them? And more importantly, how many times has she remembered them since? Lena went back to work like nothing happened. She left that Monday morning wearing the same blazer she always did when she had client meetings, kissed me lightly on the cheek, and said, "Let's have dinner tonight. Just us." Her voice was sweet. Too sweet. Like she was trying to preempt a conversation she knew I was too scared to start. I nodded, told her sure, and watched her drive off through the living room window like a ghost leaving her own story. The moment she was gone, I went straight to her office desk in the corner of the dining room. She rarely used her personal laptop for work stuff. Everything happened on the company-issued Mac, but that laptop was my last hope. If I found nothing, I'd be forced to accept the alternative, that everything was in her head, her heart, and her text messages, and all of that was locked away from me. To my surprise, she hadn't changed her password. Still the same old birthday of our cat, Peanut 2017. I actually laughed when it worked. It was the kind of laugh that makes your stomach hurt, like your body is mocking you for holding out hope. Her desktop was clean, unnervingly clean. A few PDFs, some old vacation photos, a tax folder from last year. No Word documents. No obvious secrets. But I opened the browser, and that's when the floodgates cracked open. In her history, there were visits to places I didn't recognize. First, a restaurant I'd never heard of, Linden and Pine. A modern jazz lounge downtown with barely any signage, the kind of spot you only hear about from someone in the know. Then there was a Google search for how to make hotel reservations without ID. That one stopped me cold. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. I clicked through the next few entries. Burner phone sites. Temporary number apps. Then a visit to a blog titled Rules for Workplace Affairs and How Not to Get Caught. I'm not making that up. That was the actual title. My stomach flipped. She'd clicked it. She read it. She even saved the link in her bookmarks. It was buried inside a folder called Inspo, like it was a recipe or a dream vacation. I opened the blog. I read every word. Each rule was worse than the last. How to keep your story straight, how to pick hotels, how to leave no trace, how to hide things in plain sight. And halfway down the page, there it was. Rule number 7, never leave written notes. If you must, destroy them immediately. Except, someone didn't destroy the note. That napkin wasn't supposed to exist. It wasn't meant for anyone to see. But it slipped through the cracks. And now it was burning a hole through my world. I printed the blog post. Every page. Highlighted the part about written notes. I don't know why. Maybe I needed physical evidence to remind myself this wasn't all in my head. That I wasn't unraveling over nothing. By the time Lena came home that evening, I had already shredded the napkin and hidden the stranger's shirt in a shoebox under my side of the bed. Not because I was protecting her, but because I wasn't ready for confrontation. Not yet. Not until I understood the full scope of the betrayal. At dinner, she smiled across the table. Told me she missed this. Just the two of us. She made a joke about how work was draining her and how we should plan a weekend getaway soon. I nodded, smiled, ate the pasta she brought home. And all the while, the copy of that blog post sat quietly inside my desk drawer in the next room. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again. But this time, I wasn't lost. I had a direction. Because the very next morning, I decided to call Linden and Pine. It took me an hour to work up the courage to make the call. I stared at the restaurant's homepage like it might talk back and tell me not to do this. Linden and Pine. Minimalist website. Jazz music loop playing softly in the background. They offered no online reservation system, just a phone number tucked at the bottom of the screen and a tagline that read, "Where the night lingers and secrets stay." That line alone made my stomach churn. I dialed the number just after they opened at noon. The hostess picked up. Her voice was young, warm, maybe mid-20s. Friendly. Innocent. "Thank you for calling Linden and Pine. How can I help you?" I didn't know what exactly I was looking for. Proof? A name? A reason to collapse? But I heard myself ask, in the most controlled voice I could manage, "Hi. This is probably a weird question, but I'm trying to figure out if my wife came in recently. Her name is Lena Harper. I think she might have had dinner there last Thursday." There was a pause. I heard soft jazz and distant clinking in the background. Then the woman said, "Hold on just a sec, let me check the log." She put me on hold. And for 45 seconds, my entire life felt like it was hanging off a cliff by a single thread. She came back on the line. "Yep," she said casually. "Harper, table for two, 7:45 p.m., Thursday night." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Do you know who she was with?" I asked, even though I had no right to. Even though I already knew the answer in my gut. She hesitated. "I mean, I'm not supposed to give out guest info, but was she the one in the red dress?" I closed my eyes. My knees went weak. "Yes," I said. "That was her." The woman gave a soft laugh. "Yeah, I remember her. She had this really loud, contagious laugh. She and the guy were definitely close. Like, not in a gross way or anything. Just like they were on the same page. Super comfortable. Ordered the tasting menu and 2 of the house cocktails. Stayed almost 3 hours. Do you know his name?" Another pause. "Nope. He paid in cash, which is rare. And he didn't say much. But he gave her his jacket when she went to the restroom. That's how I remembered them. It was kind of sweet, actually. I thanked her, ended the call, and sat down on the floor of my office. Cash. No name. Jacket. This man was careful. He wasn't just some flirtatious coworker playing with boundaries. He knew how to move without leaving tracks. And Lena, my wife, had slipped into that world like it was natural, like she belonged in it. She didn't even blink when she lied to me about that night. No stammering, no guilt, no awkward pause. Just a clean story, polished and handed to me like a souvenir from a place she never went. But now I had a receipt. Not literal, there was none, but emotional. That hostess had confirmed the reality I was afraid to say out loud. My wife had a second life, and I wasn't part of it. I spent the rest of the day wandering through the house like a stranger in my own life. Every photo of us felt like a lie. Every shared memory now carried a shadow behind it. I thought about our anniversary trip to Portland, the Valentine's dinner she forgot to plan, the late nights at the office. I replayed everything with new eyes. Paranoid eyes, but no longer paranoid without cause. That night, I couldn't bring myself to ask her anything. She looked at me from across the dinner table like nothing had changed. She even laughed at something dumb I said, probably out of habit. But her laugh didn't reach her eyes. And all I could think was, that same laugh echoed off the walls of Linden and Pine, didn't it? For someone else. For him. After she fell asleep, I sat in the dark and started writing everything down. The Uber photo, the shirt, the napkin, the browser history, the restaurant log. I wasn't crazy. I needed to see it on paper. I needed to build a timeline. Because this wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a pattern, and I had no idea how far it went. There's something about timelines. When you build them the right way, really commit to it, minute by minute, they stop being just a list of events. They become a map of who someone actually is, underneath the stories they tell you. That's what I spent the next 2 days doing. Mapping my wife's life without her knowing. I started with receipts. She was careless with those. Target runs, takeout orders, dry cleaning, little breadcrumbs left behind in her purse, jacket pockets, junk drawer. I lined them up by date on the kitchen counter. Then I checked the emails she left open on our shared desktop, calendar invites, thank you notes from colleagues, a few weird Uber receipts that didn't match any events she told me about. From there, I pulled her social media, her work Slack. She'd once linked it to our tablet by accident, and even old GPS routes that had been stored on our shared Google account before she switched to private mode about 6 months ago. That's when I noticed the Boston trip. 3 Fridays ago, she told me she was flying out to Boston for a 2-day branding seminar. Her exact words, "It's mostly boring lectures, but I'll get some good networking in. Don't wait up." She left early that morning, suitcase in hand, and even texted me a picture of the terminal once she got through security. Except that same day, a receipt from our local gas station showed up in the kitchen trash. Time-stamped 1:17 p.m. Same day, same town. I went back to the Google timeline. Forgotten data she must have assumed I didn't know how to find. My hands trembled as I clicked through the map. Her phone had never left the city limits. In fact, it had only gone as far as a park on the east side, Eastmore Preserve. A quiet place. A secluded place. Then later, it pinged near the Elms Hotel, the one just 2 blocks away from Linden and Pine. She spent the entire night within a 10-mile radius of our house. I sat in the dark staring at that map for hours. The little blue line following her every movement was like watching an affair in motion. Not just lies. Not just omission. A fully constructed fiction. She had gone as far as posing in an airport just to buy herself space. And I believed it. I even brought home Thai food for myself that weekend because she wouldn't be back until Sunday afternoon. I opened my notes, added the new data to the timeline, and highlighted the Boston trip in red ink. This wasn't just emotional cheating anymore. This was calculated, coordinated, a machine made of lies, and I had only just found the blueprints. When I confronted her, sort of later that night, I didn't go all in. Not yet. I just asked, "Hey, how was Boston again? You never showed me any photos." She blinked for a second, caught off guard, then smiled. "Oh, it was fine. Hotel was decent. Panels were a snooze fest. I met this woman named Sari who works for a fashion startup in New York. Remind me to show you her Instagram. She's got this amazing eye for texture." I nodded along. The lie rolled off her tongue like honey. And yet, her phone never left the city. After she went to bed, I went out to the garage. Her suitcase was still there in the trunk. Unzipped, untouched. Inside, not a single item of clothing had been worn. Everything folded exactly the way she packed it. Even the tiny plastic tag from her airport bottle of shampoo was still sealed. That was the moment I knew for certain. She wasn't even trying to cover her tracks anymore. She thought I'd never look. She thought I'd never question her. She thought she had broken me into being docile. But I wasn't broken. I was just sharpening. Because that weekend, while she was sleeping soundly upstairs in the bed we used to share without hesitation, I made my final decision. I was going to find out who he was. Name, face, job, birthday, I wanted it all. And when I found him, I wasn't going to confront him. I was going to beat them both at their own game. Finding him was easier than I expected. Almost insultingly easy. After everything Lena had done to cover her tracks, encrypted messages, fake business trips, cash payments, I thought she would have guarded his identity like a state secret. But as it turns out, when you think you've already won, you stop being careful. You get lazy. You forget that someone's still watching from the shadows, collecting every dropped breadcrumb like evidence for a trial you don't know is coming. It started with the shirt. The one I found crumpled at the bottom of the laundry basket 2 weeks earlier, still faintly smelling of cologne I didn't recognize. I had locked it away in a shoebox beneath my side of the bed, but now I pulled it out again and studied every inch of it under better light. There was a tiny embroidered monogram on the inside of the collar, W.C. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I checked the staff directory on Lena's company website. I pretended to be a potential client. Sifted through dozens of bios. Then I saw it. Wesley Kane, senior brand consultant. Tall, athletic, straight white teeth and soft brown eyes. One of those faces that looks good in motion, like it belongs on a startup's promotional video about culture. I recognized him instantly. Not from her office party, not from some passing mention. No, it was worse than that. He had been in our home. Months ago, Lena hosted a small, casual creative night for her coworkers. Just 6 people. I grilled burgers. She made spritzers. We played cards against humanity like college kids, and I remember Wesley most of all because he complimented our bookshelves. He said we had good taste in melancholy fiction, which struck me as a weirdly specific thing to say. But he was charming, polite, the kind of guy who looked you directly in the eyes when you spoke, like he was absorbing every word. I had offered him a second beer. He had slept with my wife. And not just once. Not a mistake. Not a drunken accident. No, this was a system. A pattern. A part of her life so well-structured that it had seasons, favorite places, shared language. He was the you made me forget the rules guy. The one who paid in cash. The one whose cologne now lived in our laundry. I couldn't breathe. For a long time, I just sat there at my desk, staring at his smiling face on the company site. I zoomed in on the photo until the pixels blurred. I opened his LinkedIn, his old Medium blog, even found an archived YouTube video where he gave a TEDx talk titled, "The Power of Reframing a Narrative." The irony was so thick it almost made me laugh. This man, who slept with married women behind closed doors, standing on a stage talking about authenticity and human connection. That night, Lena came home late, claimed she had drinks with Jenna from accounts, who, according to her, was finally starting to open up. I nodded, played dumb, asked what they talked about. She spun a perfect story. Laughs, work gossip, an emotional conversation about burnout. She even mimicked Jenna's voice for effect. Every second of it was a lie, and I watched her build that lie like an architect laying bricks. When she went to bed, I stayed up scrolling through Wesley's social media. Most of it was curated nonsense, sunsets, latte art, conference selfies. But buried deep in his Instagram highlights, under a reel called Moments, I found something that made my chest seize. A boomerang. 2 cocktail glasses clinking together in dim red lighting. And across the table, blurry but undeniable, was Lena's hand. Same wedding ring. Same nail polish she wore the week she was in Boston. And just for a second, before the loop repeated, I could hear her laugh. That same sharp, unguarded laugh the hostess from Linden and Pine remembered. She didn't just cheat. She celebrated it. She toasted it like it was something beautiful. I closed the app, turned off my phone, and stared at the ceiling in total silence. My ears were ringing. My face felt hot, but there were no tears. Not anymore. Just something colder. Sharper. A clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. Because in that moment, I realized something. Lena didn't think she was betraying me. She thought she had outgrown me. And now, I had a choice. Let it break me quietly, or end it loudly. The morning I left her, the sun came up slow. There was a strange calm in the air. You know the kind, when the storm has already passed and everything looks cleaner, even though you know a lot just got destroyed. That's how it felt. Not like victory, not like revenge. Just silence. The peaceful kind. The final kind. Lena was in the shower, humming to herself. Something soft and mindless, like she used to do back when things were good. I sat at the dining table with the folder I'd spent the last 3 days assembling. Inside it, divorce papers, a printed copy of her hotel reservation, the receipts, the GPS data, and that photo of her red shoes the Uber driver sent me. Topped with one last item, a playlist I found on her old iPod, one she'd made entitled For When He Walks In. All love songs. Not one of them reminded me of us. I didn't scream. I didn't smash anything. I didn't even cry. When she came out of the bathroom, towel in her hair, she paused at the table and looked at the folder. She knew. I didn't have to say a word. Her expression shifted so fast, from surprise to guilt to that quiet, exhausted dread you see in people who know the game is over. I said only one thing. I know everything. I'm not here to punish you. I'm just done. She sat down across from me, opened the folder, flipped through it in silence. When she looked up, her voice cracked. I never thought you'd find out. I gave a sad little laugh, not bitter, just tired. That's the part that hurts the most. She didn't beg. She didn't defend it. There were no crocodile tears or desperate apologies. Just a stillness between us. The kind that means it's already too late to fix anything. And in a way, I was grateful for that. I didn't want the performance. I didn't want theatrics. I just wanted out. I told her I'd be staying at a friend's place until things got filed, that the papers were already signed, and all she had to do was finish it. She nodded slowly. No fight. No argument. By noon, I was gone. And you know what surprised me? How light I felt. Not happy. Not yet. But free. Like taking off a soaked jacket you didn't realize you'd been wearing for years. The kind of freedom that doesn't feel like running away. It feels like finally turning towards something else. The days that followed weren't perfect. Of course they weren't. I had to explain things to friends. Some believed me. Some didn't want to get involved. Her side of the story was quieter, more palatable, I'm sure. But I didn't care. For the first time in years, I wasn't living in someone else's version of reality. I wasn't walking on eggshells or playing detective in my own marriage. I got my own place. Small, simple, clean. I started journaling again. Something I hadn't done since college. I saw a therapist who told me something I'll never forget. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you decide to take. And I took it. Months passed. Slowly, then all at once. And then one afternoon, while standing in line at a bookstore cafe, I met someone. She wasn't flashy or mysterious or dripping in Instagram energy. She was kind, funny, sharp-eyed. She noticed the book I was holding and told me it was her favorite. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing and everything. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a man haunted by betrayal. I felt like a man who had survived it. I don't know what comes next. I'm not trying to force anything. But what I do know is this. I don't regret leaving. And I don't hate her anymore. She made her choices. And I finally made mine.